Reshus chavrei v'yedidim, Reshus Reb Shlita, Reshus Moromem, our great dear friend from Detroit. We have someone special today. My good friend Reb Moshe Erdberg came this week. A tremendous chizuk. The Rashiva Rabbi Sandro's here. The Kol chavrei v'yedidim. All those that are here. Yedicha Gmokim v'kirav alev. The schus HaTorah that we learned this morning. Every year that came this morning, a rainy morning. It's not easy to come so early in the morning. The Belzer Rebbe, the Safadoi says, Yirotzim Ufnei Avinu Shebashamayim. When it comes to Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asuna Batzorah, it doesn't say Yirotzim Ufnei Avinu Shebashamayim. The Rebbe said when it's Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asuna Batzorah, when a person feels his brothers and sisters are Batzorah, that alone is Goyrim Yirotzim Ufnei Avinu Shebashamayim. The Shus HaTorah that we learned today should be a shmirah for Yidden that are Batzorah, that should be Shomer Amo Yisrael. One of the things you see in Svarim HaKadoshim, the outlook of going to this Shabbos. One person will come to Shul this Shabbos. Oh, there's a long Kriyas HaTorah this week. I don't know, it's a long Kriyas HaTorah with the Rosh Chodesh benching. If you're in a Chassidish Shul with Yoitzis, it's almost like, it's like Tachnam, Yoitzis, it goes into the same. Parsha Shkol, look at the Pinchas Koritza, look at the Chassidish Svarim, the same way many Yidden waiting for a vacation, midwinter vacation. There were Erliche Yidden that were waiting in the winter. It was a cold winter, a schwere winter. Yidden were waiting for the Dalet Parshas. The Dalet Parshas, this is the beginning of our preparation for the Yimei Pesach. Every Yid wants to walk into the Seder and feel connected to Hashem. The Achana starts this Shabbos, and the more effort the person puts into it, to know what does it mean? What does it mean to me? What is the Torah teaching me? What is Chazal? What's the Chizuk that a Yid has from Parsha Shkolim? We know it's brought down in Machlokes. The Sefer HaChinuch says the reason why we lay in Parsha Shkolim is a Zikaron. The Mishabura brings the Shita from the Lavush, which Rabbi Mromem and Shloma could say a Shiur about. It's a pelik. I don't know if there's another Kriyas HaTorah like this Kriyas HaTorah. The Lavush says Neshalma Parim Svaseinu. The same way we know there's Neshalma Parim Svaseinu when a Yid says the Parshas Karbonos Ke'ilu Ekravnu, so too when we lay in the Parsha from Machzas HaShekel, which if Tzaddik asks, where does it pass the Shalom Parim Svaseinu on Machzas HaShekel? No one likes to make it appeal, and he'll say the Shalom Parim Svaseinu as if I gave it. Aber Chazal haben gesagt that when a Yid reads the Parsha this week, every one of us, the Medrash says, Moshe Rabbeinu ani zoykef es roishin shal Yisrael. So this is, each one of us, I'm going to share an idea, but a person has homework. What does it mean to me? What's the message of Parsha Shkolim? Parsha Shkolim is the Parsha where Klal Yisrael was counted. What's the kipshuto? Sometimes the Pashat, the Pshat, what does it mean a person's counted? When a person's counted to something, that means I want to be part of it. It must be an opportunity. If I'm not interested in it, I don't want to be part of it. Why would I want to be counted? And Chazal, the idea of being counted means I want to be part of the Am Yisrael. A special simcha. How many of us are going to say a bracha soon? The Yisod B'Shorish V'Avodah writes when a person says the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Shaloi Osani Goy. The Yisod B'Shorish V'Avodah writes that a person Kol Kach Tegodol Simchasa. A person should have a tremendous simcha b'slavas. Wow, what an opportunity I have! I'm part of the Am Yisrael. I saw a marshal to a person. Rabbi Weintraub's here, tremendous chizuk, which a Talmud Chacham comes. So I saw a marshal. You have a boy who was brought up in Beis HaMelech. He was the only child of a king, and he grows up in a life of luxury, a life of kol ha'tovah shebayla. One day he gets depressed. They bring him to a psychiatrist, psychologist, talking to him to figure out his problem, and he starts complaining. All my problems are because I'm the son of the king. I don't have a normal life. I can't talk to anyone normally. My life's so difficult. All types of problems. They try to explain him with a lot of therapy. It costs a lot of money. They try to explain him. They bring him into someone's house. They show him a picture of the king. They bring the person's children, and the children say, "Oh, if only we could get to see the king." So a person, each one of us, I heard this from a great mashpia. He said, this is years ago in America. He said one of the things that America did is took away the Jewish pride. There were many Jewish people after the war or before the war that their level of observance was very low. But the pride of being a Jew, Yiddish to Yiddish, that pride of being a Jew, being part of the Am Yisrael. I was in a doctor's office this week. I was in shop. I was in the hospital, and they asked me, "What race are you from?" So my son says, "Well, doesn't look. What's your guess?" Today we never know. I was thinking, you have to answer that question. What do I answer? Do I answer, I'm a Jew? Do I answer, I'm an American? This is Reb Motti writes in his times. What came first? Is I American? Am I a Jew? And the Jewish pride, that's the bracha. That's machzas hashekel. I'm becoming part of the Am Yisrael. Every Yid was standing on line waiting to give his machzas hashekel with that Jewish pride. Now with that, Chazal teach us, comes a kapara. There's a kapara l'chapra al nafshei seichel. And what is that kapara? What's the kapara of l'chapra al nafshei seichel? It's easy to see. Go to the phone, so the speech will go quicker. L'chapra al nafshei seichel. What's the kapara? So every person, not only am I a Jew, what message, what vibe do I give off? Rabbi always says, what vibe? What vibe do I give off? Do I give off a vibe, it's good to be a Jew? How my children are growing up at a Shabbos Suda? What do they read all the newspapers and Baruch Hashem? We have wonderful, so much to do on Shabbos. The Shad, that one of the newspapers doesn't look like a sefer. At least Tati, the kids would think, listen, they don't know what it says on the cover, but Tati would fall asleep and say, Rabbi Waxman Shlita, what an up Hashem should bench you for a great simcha to see you. I appreciate the only voice that I still could get into without protection is the morning kollels. Every morning, so far there's no round table. So thank Rabbi Waxman, we can get into the kollel, the simcha rabbah, soon we're going to have to get major protection. The Rav's going to take care of it. It'll be a huge building soon, Be'ez Hashem. Everyone is always accepted and lost. That's one of the kollel. But a person, what vibe do I give off? Do I give off a vibe, it's great to be a Jew? Or do I give off a vibe, the Jewish people has many, many problems? One of the things that people and again, kulam ahuvim, kulam brurim, there's many miles in knowing the difficulties, knowing the nisyonis hazman. But what vibe do I give off? That Ashreinu ma'toiv chalkeinu, the Jewish people are the best people in the world. So just to put in perspective, just for a few minutes, the outlook of Klal Yisrael today. So I grew up in the old Lakewood, and we saw Gobats in the back corner there. So those times where there was a certain chain that Lakewood had, but to say that was the best time in Klal Yisrael, we learned in Lakewood Cheder then, there wasn't a building, we had classes all over town. The Rabbeim were wonderful Yidden that meant L'Shem Shemayim and wonderful Yidden. But to be a Rebbe was very difficult. There was no training. There was no such thing as someone has a creed problem to send them to someone. So to say that those times in Lakewood, that's the best time in the world. There was no grocery to go to. We had Barry Goldberg and Louis Friedman, Big Tzaddikim. At the bakery, you could get half the zach. You had Esther Dales. You could get some kosher food. But to say that was the best time in Klal Yisrael is hard to say. The previous generation, and this is something that I hear from Rav Bick, over and over. What was it like growing up in the Bronx? I was by Rav Bick last week. He was telling me there were 2 schools in the Bronx. My father went to Salamta Yeshiva. Most of the kids were fry in the class. Most of the kids weren't from. Rav Bick was telling me the school that he went to, he was trying to tell me some of the songs that they sang in that school. Today, if any school would sing such songs, there would be signs up all around town. Rav Bick told me I went on the train. My father sent me 8 years old. He sent me on the train to San Seifer by myself. He says, I had payas. They used to pull my payas. Aber nicht the Yidden. Nicht the Goyim were pulling my payas. The Yidden were pulling my payas. Rabbi told me many times that Yid have a beard in the Bronx. How many sheiklach were there in the Bronx? How many mikvahs were there in the Bronx? Millions of Yidden. Shvera zmanim. The Sionis of Shmir Shabbos. Rabbi always talks about remembering going to shul in the morning and he saw a Yid that had a challah. And the inside of the challah he gave to his children. And he took the outside, he should have lechem mishnah. And he had to go to work on Shabbos. So that was a tremendous, difficult time. Mromam said last week, the generation before the war, that was a very shver zman. 70%, Earl Warren writes, of Jewish children in Poland before the war, he writes, 70% of Jewish children didn't go to Jewish schools at all. The shverkeit in those zmanim, my Zayden came from Telenesh. In Telenesh, the kamat were handfuls of children that were filled. In Germany, the matzah was very, very difficult. There's more Torah in New Jersey today than there was in Ganslit. There were yeshivas, there were unbelievable yeshivas. But to say that those times were good times. Now I want to read for a minute a letter. This goes back already to the 1830s. Rav Shanshval Hirsch is writing a letter in his time. He writes, all my house gets are asleep. I'm still at my desk reading a letter. Is it ever going to get better in Israel? And Rav Shanshval Hirsch writes here, this is when he was writing when he was a bocher, learning in Rabbi Yaakov Etliker in the Orach Haner's Yeshiva. Has there ever been a time like this this for our Jewish people. Has there ever been a time, and he writes about the difficulties of his time, and he writes how he's sitting in his room, and someone comes to him and tells him, there's a Yid selling a sefer. And the Yid was selling a sefer from the Yavitz, that the Yavitz wrote 400 years before that. And the Yavitz writes about Golos Spain, when even thousands of Yidden were lifted. The Chassid Yavitz writes about the Shverkeit in his mama, who was learning L'Shem Torah, Groisa Shverkeit. The outlook that a Yid has to live and this thing, we grow up, the olden times. Oh, those were the times. Today, Klal Yisrael Shverkeit. If we look at Klal Yisrael today, you look at the yeshivas. If someone takes his car today and sits in front of Beis Medrash, sits in front of the yeshiva that we have, most people in Lakewood, including myself, they don't even appreciate the yeshiva that we have. They don't appreciate thousands and thousands of in the life that I don't even dream, don't go to restaurants, don't know about this whole world, about the problems people talk about. Is go look by yeshiva. I'm not saying something, I'm not talking about the olden days and I can make things up. Go sit by Lakewood Yeshiva and watch them in the light coming to learn. Look at their faces. Look at the Mesiras Nefesh. There's Noshim Tzidkonius in Lakewood that are living ala Torah ala Avodah, living come from paycheck to paycheck. Go around to the schools. The schools, thousands of Yiddish kinder that are learning Torah ala Avodah, that are sitting and living a life that want to be Dovak B'Hashem. Go to the girls' schools. How many Yiddish Meidlach have a rotzen for a shidduch to marry Ben Torah? In Europe, no one wanted to marry Ben Torah. The amount of Torah that is, go to yeshiva today, go to yeshivas, Bochum finishing the sechtas, Bochum no halacha, tremendous avas HaTorah. You look at the chesed that there is today, the organizations that we have, for any tzorech a person has. We can sit here right now, any tzorech a person has, a person will have a moisid that will help him. Does a person ever think twice, calling this person, I need a doctor, I need this, I need that. The amount of moistness that we have, the amount of people that help other people. I was by a Shiva house last night, and a Mishpacha member shows me his phone. Yeah, our family just raised $175,000. Our family raised. The Rav Shlita should have koyach, the amount of chesed the Rav does. If you look at this kollel, go around, I don't want to take out some names, but the amount of people sitting in this room, Choshim of B'nai Torah, Rav Yisrael Goldblatt sitting in the back corner, Rav Sinsky, when I came to Lakewood Yeshiva, I was sitting right behind Rav Sinsky. Dovak b'Torah v'avodah. Rav Muromam Shlita, these are Yidden, you could just pick up, these are Yidden, unbelievable people. Rabbi Applebaum sits in the front corner, a Yid sitting here in this corner. You have tremendous Talmidei Chachamim. Rabbi Ingber, you have a Yid sitting in the back corner. A whole Yom Tov, I don't know who else there was. My father was in the hospital, and it was Sukkot last year. I was on the phone with Rabbi Ingber a whole Yom Tov, straight through Yom Tov. And what do you give him a halba thank you? Klal Yisrael, the chesed that we have. I believe this by Emunah Shleima. If the tides would change, and it would become that people come from Eretz Yisrael, they come to Lakewood, and people take people around in Lakewood, they take people around to great people. We would go to this, we go to the parish of Levenberg. We say, look at this Yid, wrote Svarim and Svarim, Reb Chaim Ginsberg, Dovak b'Torah. My father was my parents' neighbor, Reb Hershel Gans. When I was a little boy, they said that Hershel Gans was a Shasi. Yisrael Taplin was a little boy. They said David Taplin's around. Rabbi Taplin puts his feet in water and learns the whole night. There's a Yid Rabbi Weinbrand. People don't even know a Yid that's hard for him to learn. He sits at home. Dovak b'Torah. How many Talmidei Chachamim do we have sitting in their houses learning the Eibish's Torah? So if a child grows up in a home, all he sees about is who could find the newest problems. And of course, Rabbonim have to know the problems. Parents have to know the problems. But the outlook, Ashreinu ma'toiv chalkeinu. We're part of a time when Klal Yisrael, any Yid can learn Torah. We have Torah anytime. Trying to be, if everyone wants to call, see a Yid, see an embassy Yid. I called up there, I don't even know his name. The Tzaddik in Torah anytime. He answers his phone. He's thinking of any idea.
What a shas! What a
ganze shas! Any person wants to learn
any Florida or Africa,
any mitzvah of Torah that a person
if
a person has the outlook, a person gives the Machzis HaShekel and he teaches his children, Ashreinu, that we're part of Klal Yisrael. Ashreinu, we have Torah, we have Chesed, we have people trying. If a person would go to any shul in Lakewood and go talk about the Rav of that shul, does anyone think twice to call a Rav, ask him a shayla? A person thinks twice about his time, maybe he's busy. Before Pesach, speak to Rabbanim, what it's like before Pesach. The Rav's trying to clean his house, his wife, he's getting phone calls rules. Anyone thinks twice? Yeah, that's part of life. The Eibusher should help each one of us. When we give the machzah shekel tonight by our Shabbos Suda, we talk about the chesed, we talk about the Torah, we talk about Ashreinu ma'toiv chalkeinu. We're part of a time in Klal Yisrael when every Yid that I meet, I never met a Yid in Lakewood in my life that doesn't have a rotzen to become a better person. Every Yid has a rotzen to become better. The Eibusher should bench each one of us. We should be proud this Shabbos when we lay machzah shekel. We don't have a problem with what's happening in the world, because we know that it's all Mashiach's coming. We know the Eibusher is fearing develop. The way the world is today is not the perfect world. We understand. We know Bereshis, Mishvil Yisrael, Shemik Bereshis. The Eibusher should help each one of us. We should be proud and give over to our children. Ashreinu ma'toiv chalkeinu. We're part of the Am HaNifcha. How do we teach our children? We say stories of Gedolim, not stories of negativity. Stories of Gedolim that teach us. If Mr. Zalman Meltzer, Mr. Aaron went to his house, if Mr. Zalman Meltzer didn't walk into his house, they asked him, why didn't he walk in after a shiur? He walks to the door, he goes back, he walks to the door. And they asked him, Mr. Zalman, why are you not going in? Because I hear the cleaning lady singing, and if I walk in, she's going to stop singing. These are the stories that inspire our children to be Erlachim. We talk about stories of Yidden that we know today, our Rabbanim, our Talmidei Chachamim. We talk about stories in our Kollel, so our children say, this is who I want to be like. This is who I want to grow up and I want to raise my family. We should be zeicha to appreciate Ashreinu ma'toiv chalkeinu. When we learn the machzah shekel, we should be zeicha to avoid the Yerushalayim. We should be zeicha Shabbos of Aliyah, Shabbos of Simcha, a Shabbos of Vital Libeinu L'Avdei Chavenos.